Now I would like to talk about a stage effect which I really love, and I've performed the first dancing cane when I was about, I think, 12 years old, and fell in love ever since. For many years I had the biggest problem that I could never find a dancing cane what really looked A like a cane and B was light enough so I could actually dance the cane fairly close to the audience. Over the years I also came up with a dancing wand which I'm still selling, and it's a great effect and good alternative too. And this cane is built exactly the same way like the wand, and you can perform this cane in the same distance, really up close to the people. But before I start, let me talk a little bit about the right lighting on stage. In close-up situations or living room situations, you don't really need to worry about the thread, especially if you use one of my canes, because they're really super light and you cannot see the thread because I'm using invisible thread for the dancing cane or for the dancing wand. Now, how do you light thread work on stage? Like you can see here, that's a black background, and what I did, I focused some light onto that black curtain, and that way the black turns in sort of like a gray color, and that's actually really good for thread work. Also, you should never really wear all black, so I'm wearing a lighter shirt here. On stage, you've seen it on my live performance, I'm wearing a white coat because even if you have the perfect background for your show, if people wear black and then people see into the black suit or whatever you're wearing, they can eventually see the thread, because black is the worst kind of color for thread work. The reason for that is when the light hits the thread, you see a little reflection. And if you have a bright background, the reflection is gone because the background is brighter than the thread can reflect. If you have a pitch black background, this little spark what comes off of the thread, you can see in the last row in a 2,000 seats theater, and that is really the biggest problem about thread work. Not only with the dancing cane, you can use any kind of thread work on stage, behaves exactly the same way. You cannot see the thread unless you, some magicians use really thick thread, like if you use, if you do flying or something like that, but a normal thread is invisible unless it gets hit by the light and the reflection of the thread gives off this little spark. That's why a little trick, if you brighten up the background like I did right now here, you cannot see the thread when it is in motion. Now you probably say, well, some stage they only have black background. Like I said already here, you can shine some light onto the black background and that turns into a gray color. That helps very good. Sometimes you have only moving lights. That's really hard to perform with, because it's such an intense lighting. Wherever this light hits the thread, you will see it for sure. So there is also another little trick. You can also leave the background black, and if you have enough from these moving lights, you make like a circle around you, but the point where you're standing is actually not lit. You basically get lit through the reflection from the floor, and you appear to be fairly well lit, and that way there is no light hitting the thread and no one will ever see the thread. So that's these two versions you can use on stage and they work just great. If you have like 10-15 minutes time. If you don't have any time to do any light rehearsal, please do not perform with threads on stage, because you will eventually see it. If you don't have the lighting right, you will see the thread all the times. Again, this does not exist in close-up magic, parlor, very rarely, only if you have hard spotlights hitting you, or living room type situations, you don't have to deal with that problem. So my system with the dancing cane, wand, or my dancing staff, what I'm doing at the beginning of my show, it's basically the same. All three objects are behave the same way. That's why I choose to show it with a dancing cane right now. My system is that the thread goes inside the wand, cane, or staff. Now, there's a little piece here at the end. It's scotch tape. you can pinch it in with 2 fingers and you're already hooked up to the thread, just like that. Now, if you have a dancing cane at home, the most problem of these dancing canes is that they are not well weighted. So instead of adding more weight to the cane, you actually have to just maybe replace the position where the thread is hooked on. So how do you do that? You balance the cane so it's very nice and equal, and then you go about 2 fingers towards the knob, and that's pretty exactly the point where you have to attach the thread. But you should still tweak it a little bit to find the ideal spot. So you work a little bit around with it, and if it doesn't wobble around, then you have really the right spot. So here I'm just going to pinch it in between my fingers, and it goes 1 round around my finger, my middle finger here. So I have a very secure grip on it, and like I said, it's an invisible thread. So at the beginning, I'm starting usually with something like that. I hold the cane and then I'm opening slowly my hands, and it's kind of suspended in front of it. Now I can move my hands up without moving the thread. But what I'm doing here is I'm coming a little bit closer with this hand and go up with the other hand at the same time. That way I have a constant tension on this side here, and I go closer to the other hand, and it appears to be that the cane stays in midair. See, I want to have the appearance that I'm not going up and the cane goes up, or down and the cane goes down. So this is the idea. So you open up here and it looks like you're not attached to it. Then you just start bringing the cane in motion. And that's the most important move I'm using on stage, where my hands are completely still and the cane is dancing. And this is based on a pendule. I'm just thinking that the cane is dancing in this direction, and my inner muscles keep this cane actually moving. Now I can also go around it and up, go a little bit to the sides, just like that. And it dances very, very nicely with an invisible thread. And then I can also spin around, just like you saw on stage. And then, whoops, catch it, bring everything together, make my, go into this position, which is always like an applause motion. I get my applause, and the thread is already back inside the cane, because there is a little counterweight inside, which will simply pull the thread inside the cane.